Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. About 4 topics for this video. And the first half of this video has to do with something that probably you and I already know, and that is the Russians said it multiple times. They will never accept NATO troops in Ukraine. But we have countries, leaders, specifically from Great Britain and France, who don't know that, and they say they want to deploy troops in Ukraine. So I have 2 articles on that topic. The other one is another thing that we know but they don't, which is the Russians target political control of Ukraine, not merely Donbas. Yes, again, this is something that you and I probably know because it's obvious what the Russians said multiple times about Ukraine. And we're going to discuss that. But some people it's just news to them right now. They reached the conclusion after 3 years and a half that the Russians want to control Ukraine now instead of let it be on the other side's claws. Then we're going to move to another the other side, the second part of this video, which has to do with US's hypocrisy. And that is, we find out why the Americans impose sanctions on India, and that is to end the war. But on the other hand, the Americans are selling weapons and are giving intelligence and all that to Ukraine to stop the war again. So stopping the war under certain conditions, which is the same thing the Russians want, under their term. So I'm going to show you 2 articles where the Americans claim that we had to put sanctions on India so we can start for humanitarian reasons. And the last article, last topic for this video is Trump comes out and says, you know what, tells the Ukrainians, forget about Crimea and forget about NATO. And everybody, again, this is another piece of, oh my God, we didn't know, really? We're not going to get Crimea back, you know what I mean? And we're not going to go into NATO, even though we said that a precondition. And please remember this, in any argument you have to any, deluded or delusional guy, the precondition in 1990, a long time ago, in 1990, a precondition for Ukraine to be allowed to be independent, a free country, sovereign country, was you will never, and it's signed by these guys, never repeatedly allow yourself or never align or be part of a military organization hostile to anybody. You will be forever and ever neutral. And I just found out that actually the guys from Finland did the same thing in 1945. I found out from Lavrov, an interview he conducted. He was in 2 days ago, or yesterday, I think it was. So you can say Lavrov is lying, but this is extra information for me. I knew that Ukraine said we're going to be neutral in the Budapest Memorandum in 1994. Signed and say, we're going to give you nuclear weapons, but we're going to be neutral. That's why we're going to be neutral, and that's it. Nobody will attack us. Nobody will try to get us in any organizations against the other ones, arming one country to the detriment of another country. So I found out that actually what was one of the preconditions for Ukraine being allowed to be an independent sovereign country in 1990, not 1994. So let's start with the first article, which is Moscow rejection. And these guys all seem to be surprised by this. DPA International. Moscow rejects deployment of troops from NATO countries in Ukraine. This is August 18. This is the last time these guys said it. Russia has once again categorically rejected the deployment of troops from NATO countries in Ukraine amid US-led efforts to end the war. They want to use it as a peacekeeping force and blah, blah, blah. The United Kingdom has repeatedly suggested the possibility that foreign troops could be sent to Ukraine once peace is reached. but the spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Ministry, fantastic Maria Zakharova, said in Moscow that Britain was continuing to seek what she called, and I'm quoting, an escalation in the conflict with such scenarios, and was pushing NATO members to a dangerous limit from which a major global conflict was not far off. That means I'm gonna give you in a veiled way that we will not accept it and we will strike you. Gonna go to war. Now, the Russians went to war with NATO in Ukraine. We knew who's who, what's what. They make it sound as the Ukrainians were attacked by the Russians, and they were just picking flowers from the field, smelling them and dancing a little bit, and they were just a happy nation before the Russians entered Ukraine in 2022. Happy nothing happened in 2014, 15, 16, 17, nothing. It was just kumbaya, happiness. That's how these guys portray that. That's for kindergarten, okay? You and I are not in kindergarten anymore, I guess. Are we? So they portray it that way. No, my boy, no, that's not why we entered them, the Russians said. And you know exactly why. We're going to enter to make sure that you don't bring NATO troops, you don't bring more American weapons next door, and you don't get Ukraine into a NATO alliance. Clear that you're not supposed to. All right, let's move that. And these guys say, well, we're going to bring them in. We're going to bring peacekeeping troops. This defeats the whole purpose of anything. So the Russians were eager and said, we're going to fight you, NATO, in Ukraine. And here says the same thing. You want to bring troops over there? We're going to fight you again. We did it once, we'll do it again. With successful outcome. And this is what she said. She was reacting to statements by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying he was prepared to deploy such troops. Ukraine is in favor of this as a security guarantee. Now that's exactly why the Russians had, 600,000 dead or something. And I'm quoting Zakharova, we reiterate our repeatedly expressed position that we deny any scenarios that envisage the deployment of a military contingent to Ukraine with the participation of NATO states. India could come, Iraq could bring stuff, North Korea, but not you, which could lead to an uncontrollable escalation. Could lead to an uncontrollable escalation of the conflict with unpredictable consequences. This is a threat, this is what's going to happen. If you're going to do that, we will react. And that could go to, nuke you or something. But she doesn't say it because she's a diplomat, unlike others. All right, and this is from, South China Morning, whatever this is. Russia reject deployment of troops from NATO countries in Ukraine. Russia's foreign ministry says UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's suggestion that he was prepared to deploy such troops was dangerous escalation. Now, this is the baboon. Why don't you go alone, man? Why don't you go alone? And we have the same one right here. This imbecile. Why don't you go alone? Because he says Macron wants boots on the ground in Ukraine. This is the next day. So this is from the 18th, correct? Right there. And then you have the next one with Starmer, right there. Which he said it right there. And it was published again on the 19th. And then you have Macron on the 19th. So the next, after Zakharova said this, and it was reported again, these guys come and say, well, we want to do it, or we could do it. So this is, how should I put it, news to you. These guys won't let it go. The problem is, why don't you go and do it yourselves, man? This is always my thing. I mean, if you're so tough, why don't you go and get a little scuffle with Russia? Because you're going to get not a bloody nose, an annihilation. And now another piece of news that you and I know, but these guys pretend they don't. New Voice of Ukraine. Kremlin targets political control of Ukraine, not merely Donbas. Correct. Excellent. They want to occupy Donbas, be part of Russia, I'm going to use blunt language, and they will control the political dynamics in Ukraine. That means sphere of influence. Okay, and this is from the Institute for Study of War, who just found out on August 19th, yesterday. Well, they said it. You guys destroyed Ukraine's neutrality. Then if Ukraine is not neutral, it means we're going to fight to see whose Ukraine will be. And we're going to fight in Ukraine. Clear? Nice. That was supposed to be averted. The Russians, the evil Russians, tried that in 2021. Remember, in 2021, in October, November, December, even January 2022, and I think early February 2022, the Russians were scratching at NATO's doors, and the United States Foreign Ministry or Secretary of State, Mr. Blinken, to get security guarantees for Russia that NATO will not do this, and they were dismissed. That's how it was. So here, the Institute for the Study of War, which you should never trust. Why? Because her president is Kimberly Kagan. She's married with Mr. Kagan, who is the brother of another Kagan, who is the husband of Victoria Nuland. They're all Jewish, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a coincidence. All right, but just I don't think anybody has the problem with me telling the truth. You have a problem with that? I mean, I was born in Romania, right? So genetically, supposedly, I'm, you know what I mean? So the same here. I mean, is there any problem? I don't think if I call them, I think they should be proud. I mean, after all, they're the chosen ones, aren't they? They claim. Anyway, so, yes, indeed, Russia doesn't want only that. And let's see what these arguments these guys bring. Lavrov reiterated false narratives about protecting Ukrainians from an illegitimate government in Kiev and defending the rights of Russian speakers. Okay, why is it a false narrative? Well, here, first, illegitimate government. Well, let me put it this way. When you have a rule, and let's say the easiest way is with kings. You know, the kings have hereditary claim to the throne. You know, that's a clear rule. I'm the king, the first male will be the next king. If he's not around, the next one, and so on. On the same lineage. Now, the king might have a brother. The brother's lineage is outside unless this lineage dies. Now, if the brother comes and kills the legitimate king, everything that comes after that, every offspring of this king, the usurper, is illegal. You understand? Because of destroy the rule of that lineage. So if this king kills this one, and then he proclaims himself king, that's not what it is. You're not. So in this case, when in 2014, some traitors, because that's how you call people in a nation, belonging to a nation, Ukrainians, working with the support of foreign, outside of Ukraine nation, foreign agencies and interests to overthrow the king, the legitimate, democratically elected of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych and his government, that is usurpation of the democracy. So everything that comes after that would be illegitimate. But you could say, well, yeah, but then they organized elections without a big chunk of Ukraine. Therefore, these guys are illegitimate because they don't represent the entire Ukrainian nation or people who live in Ukraine, who should be allowed to vote. They said, no, we're not going to do this. So that's why this government, or nowadays, doesn't represent all of them, all the Ukrainians, because 2014. And not only that, Zelensky and his government is, according to Russians, illegitimate because they didn't stand elections. In last May, they were supposed to organize them, and they didn't. And they claim security. I want to vote. If I were Ukrainian, I want to vote. I don't want you to stay in power in a continuous forever war and tell me I cannot decide who's in charge of me, who represents me, because you are incapable of getting peace. But under the clock of protecting me, you're going to have a forever war. That means I have no say. Now, I don't want you to do that. I don't give you that right. So that's why these guys are calling it illegitimate government. So it's not a false narrative whatsoever. And the other one says, and defending, and I'm quoting, the rights of the Russian speakers. Where is the lie over there? Was the Russian speakers who sent tanks towards Kiev, or it was Kiev who sent tanks in 2014 towards Donbas? Well, you know who did what. All right, and the other one protecting Ukrainians. Well, let me tell you what's going on right now. These guys got the Ukrainians in a war with the Russians. And the Russians will fight. So what can the Russians do? We're going to protect you. How? We're not going to fight you. How? Well, we're not going to allow you to be the slaves of those guys. You're going to be our slaves. Is that so? I don't know, but nevertheless, don't trust Institute for the Study of War whatsoever. The Ukrainian media outlets continuously quoted the Institute for the Study of War. It was like they were together in a partnership. And they always hailed it as being a trustworthy think tank, Washington, D.C. based think tank, non-profit. No. Go and check it out. You can find who they are. All right, so that's with that. So let's see how the Americans tried to end the war. And they said, we're going to try to end the war by stopping arming one side while we arm the other one. But now we are the mediators. You're not the mediators. You are the negotiator for the losing side. That's what they are. New Voice of Ukraine. India profits from Russian oil amid Ukraine war. Says U.S. Treasury Chief. This guy dares to come and tell us that India profits from Russian oil amid Ukraine war. But they don't. I have to remind you that the American liquefied natural gas could not compete on the market, capitalism, remember free market, with the Russian cheap natural gas coming from the pipelines. So what did they do? Besides blowing up one, I don't know who did that. Right? Besides one of them being blown up, one being 3 out of 4 Nord Stream pipelines, and making the Europeans impose sanctions on themselves, that means stopping buying cheap gas, so can buy our premium gas 3 to 4 times more expensive. So who's profiting here? Indians? Okay, how about you? All right, that's only an example. So when you hear these guys over here, I can't be on their side. I can't be. I mean, this guy obviously is not an idiot, but he's a piece of shit. Must be, because he must know the hypocrisy, what hypocrisy is. Next, Trump imposed sanctions on India to end Ukraine conflict. There you go, White House. The US president has used tremendous public pressure in an effort to bring the hostilities to a close. Why don't you impose your sanctions on you first? You know, the thing is, when you tell someone to change, or to be a good person, or to do something that you call beautiful, you should be leading by example. Otherwise, why should I listen to you? And the second one, you're a hypocrite. So when the Americans say we try to stop by imposing on those because those guys are profiting from that and that, but you are the biggest profiteer with weapons, with gas, with oil, and many other things, with tariffs now. So they imposed 50% tariffs, 25 and 25 on the Chinese, on the Indians, did they? To stop the war. So it was they hide it under the disguise of humanitarian. We have to do it. People are dying. No, it's about profit. It's about you having access to a market that before that you didn't. That's what it is. You want to sell your garbage, but you can't compete with the other ones. And Russia, you want to kneel it. It was not Russia coming towards the United States of America. It was the United States of America coming towards Russia with NATO, wasn't it? 5 expansions of NATO. What does that mean? Military alliance. So if you come close to me, what am I supposed to do? You're not my friends. You're my friend. I'm going to smack you. I tell you I will smack you. Come closer. I will defend myself. This is exactly what happens in Ukraine. And the last piece of information here that was already said before, but I would like to bring it back again, 19th of August, because he says it again and says this loud and clear. No return of Crimea and no NATO for Ukraine. Trump says, Russia took the peninsula without firing a single shot. Well, so is that the argument that cannot be given back, which again is not going to give them back because Crimea was first of all not Ukrainian. It is, and I'm quoting, impossible for Crimea to return to Ukraine or for the country to join NATO, US President Donald Trump told Fox and Friends on Tuesday. Today is Wednesday. He added that Kiev had approached the US-led military bloc to seek help in trying to get the peninsula back. And I'm quoting, they went in and said, we want to get Crimea back. This was at the beginning. So why did they go to the United Nations NATO? Why didn't they go to US's NATO? Why didn't Ukraine go to United Nations? That is what should have been the way you go and talk to people. Hey, International Forum, United States of America, right? No, it's United Nations. So United Nations, not the US. They went to the US. That tells you whose boss Ukraine was and tried to be. He went to the military alliance to make peace to intervene. Not United Nations, United States of America. And you tell me United States of America was, neutral? Oh, we have to protect them because we gotta make peace. No, you're the losing side, unfortunately. Trump revealed the other thing they said was, and I'm quoting, we want to be a member of NATO. Well, both of those things are impossible, end quote. It was always a no-no. End quote. Both during the time of the Soviet Union and now with Russia. Trump explained, adding that Russia has always stressed it did not want the enemy, quote unquote, on its border. Got it? So, it doesn't mean it's going to be that way. Presidents come and go. But I'm just saying Trump says things that we already know. Does it mean that Crimea will never come back to whomever? Maybe it comes back to Greece. After all, I mean, if you look in history, the Greeks were over there too, all around the Black Sea. Does that mean that Crimea belongs to them or to the Tatars who came late in the area? The Tatars came late when they say, well, the Tatar Crimea. When the fuck did this show up? When did they show up? Go and check it up. What, 3 days ago? All right. The Greeks were first. Thank you very much for being with me again today, my friends. Things we knew, and these guys just find out. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.